And I said, honey, what makes you think I'm compensating for something? And oh, hi there. Sorry about that. Didn't see you. Welcome back to another Cold Blood and Cocktails. As you beautiful people know, any tiff you may have, please cast it away because this is a channel of positive energy. Okay? Thank you. Well, howdy partners. How you doing? I hope wherever you're at in the world, you're having a great day so far. I myself am doing fabulous. It is storming like shit outside. I love it. So if you hear any loud thunder, it's okay. It's not my stomach or anything, although she is kind of hungry. She could use a snack. Fuck, she is a snack, aren't I? I have never felt hotter in my life. I can't even fit this whole hat in the freaking frame. I think this is the largest costume we've had. Even bigger than that time I was the whole wall. Hopefully my face is in focus. If I angle it right, this hat doesn't even look big, but then when you turn, it's like a damn boat. Oh my goodness. Well, my loves, thank you for being here, and cheers to you. Today, our little cocktail is a good old-fashioned cowboy cocktail, aka whiskey, but this is very watered down because we have a show to put on. Although I do quite like whiskey, but whiskey likes to make me take my clothes off, so okay. I also found this alcohol-free tequila that tastes like pepper, and I just added a little bit for flavoring. Oh my gosh. It's like when we tried those Applebee's lip glosses, motherfucker. Anywho though, cheers to you, darlings. So today's case is about a gentleman named Joseph. And this dude Joseph was just unlike a lot of killers who seem to have some sort of shtick, you know? The acid bath murderer, the Black Widow. Maybe they got caught in the mafia, they're a greedy-ass doctor, someone who is wronged by the world and is now doing vigilante shit. And not this guy though, it was just plain old Joe, which kind of makes this even creepier because it's a sad reminder that literally anyone can snap. Just accidentally bump somebody's car opening your door at Publix? Hell no, they're gonna come hunt you down. Maybe you forgot your neighbor Betty was allergic to pecans and she had an allergic reaction at your house, sent her in the hospital for a week and a half, and bitch, she is out for vengeance. She might kill ya. You never fucking know with people. Well, this guy Joe, he was simply angry as hell because of his upbringing, which I'm only gonna skim. It's one of those stories where you start to sympathize with the killer, but we're not here for that. If you are interested, you can actually read Joe's application for appeal, which does go into great detail about his upbringing. It's fucking depressing. I'd rather drink my watered down whiskey than a glass of depresso espresso any day. But really, you can't exactly tell what to believe based on his appeal papers because it's defending his actions, but then what he did really isn't defendable. Which you will see, like, just from a psychology point of view, that's what intrigues me the most about this case. It's just scary as shit. I am swallowing so much damn beard fur. Okay, so we're gonna get into today's case, but as we will hear, this guy loved to double fist guns, and honestly, his anger and demeanor reminded me of Yosemite Sam, even down to what the killer wore at the trial. So here we are. Bing, bang, boom. All right, let's hop into this, and don't forget to stay safe and fucking smile. Just a moment of happiness can change somebody's entire life, okay? So Joseph, of course, he did have a pretty shitty upbringing, of course. His mom turned tricks under covers for a living, if you catch my drift, which ain't nothing wrong with that. Like, get your coin, mama. What was wrong was the fact that she didn't want him in the least and was simply fit to be tied over being a parent, so she gave him up. So, like, come the fuck on. This poor kid is already gonna have mommy issues, which is like half the recipe for a serial killer souffle. He popped out of his mom in 1947 in Charleston, South Carolina, and even his adoptive dad was kind of a shit stick. The guy would say to all of his friends and neighbors, oh, just ignore that little underwear stain of a human. I didn't even want to adopt him in the first place. Like, ouch, damn. And Joseph himself didn't even know he was adopted until he was like 11, which I'm sure he could have used a few therapy sessions after that realization. Fuck that, damn. He'd be berated and abused by the adopted dad, and when the guy would start, Joseph's older half-brother Charles would start too. They'd stand on either side of him, push him around, call him a banana-licking little bitch, and make fun of him. Just saying how worthless he was, and like, shit, man, can you imagine what that does to you? Like, I'm not defending Joseph's actions in the least. There is no excuse in the universe for becoming a serial killer. But it's just a reminder how the way that you treat other humans can impact them for the rest of their lives. So be kind, damn it. Well, things started getting worse for Joseph though, of course. Like one day when Joseph was sitting at home on the living room, minding his own business, looking through a dirty mag, when all of a sudden Charles started running towards him. Full speed like a horse fly to shit, just ready to pounce. Joseph is like, oh, what in the bloody hellhole is happening? And before he could even react, he felt a stabbing pain in his stomach. I mean that literally too, like Charles was stabbing stabbing Joseph in the stomach multiple times. It's like he was being shanked in the prison showers, except this was at his home and totally unprovoked. By the time Joseph's adopted dad came home, the living room looked like that prom scene out of Carrie, and he thought, my goodness, an animal must have exploded in here. And when the dad started looking around, he saw Charles' head peeking around the corner like a teeny weeny little wimp, and there was Joseph hiding from Charles behind the couch, clutching his bloody stomach. The dad was like, damn it, I wanted to watch the football game, now I have to take you into the hospital? Like, can it wait? Oh my gosh, well hold on, let me have a drink first. So a few touchdowns later, they finally took him in, and he had to get surgery to repair all the damage. Holy fuck, right? Like, oh. Like, how did that shit fly? Why wasn't CPS called on their asses? That is suspicious. We will take a suspicious shot for that. The only, fuck. Spicy. The only love Joseph ever got in his life was from his stepmom, who really seemed to fill a void for him. Not even in like a giggity kind of way. She had compassion for him and love in this nurturing tone that always calmed him down when he'd get angry, which was pretty damn often. But his adoptive dad would abuse her regularly too, which had to have been hell to witness. And Joseph even blamed his dad for the death of her when he was like 15. I guess she'd been hit in the head really fucking hard one very drunken night, and not long after that, she developed a brain tumor that eventually killed her. So the moment he was old enough, he knew he had to get the hell out of there. Not before years of being beaten for tinkling in his bed sheets, though. In fact, Joseph's dad would rub his face in the wet sheets like a dog that just shit on the carpet. Clearly, this kid was stressed the fuck out. And his dad's all-time favorite tool of punishment was the leather strap, which typically left the poor kid so sore that he'd have to miss school, which ultimately led to him being held back a few years, which then in turn made him a target at school for being bullied. Kids can be so cruel too, can't they? Like, this poor kid can't catch a fucking break. Unfortunately though, Joseph's only ticket out of this moldy avocado of a house was a required spot in Vietnam to fight. And shit, man, it wasn't any better there too, as one could assume. There was a war in his home, a war in his world. The dude just couldn't catch a damn break. He'd been stationed on the border of Cambodia, and it was hellish chaos. He escaped being caught, but his friends weren't so lucky, and he had to witness them being mutilated and tortured to death. Fuckity fuck, like, this is so heartbreaking, isn't it? Let's drink some hair whiskey. Joseph made it back home alive, but honestly, inside it was like Chuck Norris had karate chopped his soul. He was awarded a few medals, but he looked at them and was like, I just went through hell and back again, and this is all you're gonna give me? My goodness, I at least deserve a car and a lifetime of Captain Crunch at the minimum. He was angry at his upbringing, angry at his life, and after fighting in a gruesome war, his take on the value of other human life was basically nil. Like, if you cut him off at a grocery store aisle, he'll contemplate popping a cap in your titty. And this was all before he was 20 years fucking old. Like, what the hell? I was in college being a dropout at 20. I can't imagine going through all that he did and not coming out a little bit fucked up. But still, that does not justify what he did. And shortly after he returned home, his life really went into the crapper, because it totally wasn't a shithouse before. He was 23 and still hanging around his half-brother Charles. Like, really, Joseph, find better people to be around. But they were at a friend's house when, of course, Charles had to pick on Joseph, and they got into a flying fuck of an argument. Charles is throwing beer bottles, Joseph is knocking over TV trays, and the friend is just sitting there trying to dodge his household items like, excuse me, could you not? And Joseph was like, you know what, Charles? Fuck you very much, and fuck you for not defending me. So his ass stormed out and he walked back to his adoptive dad's house a couple miles away. Oh, and he was pissed, just grumbling the whole way home. And when he walked through his front door, he went straight for the gun cabinet, pulled out a shotgun, and booked it back to the friend's house. Joseph didn't knock, he didn't even turn the handle. He just ramboed that shit, kicked the door down, pointed a gun straight at Charles, and blew his ass into next Tuesday. And the friend is just sitting there on his recliner with a cup of Pepsi, absolutely gobsmacked. And his sphincter finally relaxes for a second when Joseph walks his ass out. But that wasn't good enough for Joseph. He went to the mailbox, pointed his gun at the house, and shot out every window in the joint like a fucking hitman. Obviously, Joseph was brought into the police station, and his attorneys were like, dude, what the hell? They told him, you know what, honey, this is not gonna be easy, just take the guilty plea for manslaughter. So he does, and when the judge asked him what happened, Joseph lied through his teeth. He was like, oh, Charles reached in his back pocket for a gun like he was gonna shoot me. This was self-defense. But if it was self-defense, that meant the judge couldn't accept his guilty plea. Like, was it self-defense or manslaughter, bitch? Make up your mind. So his plea deal went through and the case went to trial. The jury saw right through his hogwash. He was now saying he had the gun with him the whole time. Like, where in the hell in his body did he just happen to be hiding a fully stocked rifle? Although I did go to this club in Europe one time and I've seen some pretty weird things. So maybe it is possible. But they didn't believe it for a second. Total drivel, gibberish. This was absolutely a murder. Which is exactly how he was found. So his ass was sent to prison for life. End of story? No, honey, we're just getting warmed up. But for For the first time in probably ever, Joseph's adopted dad had his back and begged the court to let him go. He was a good boy, he never did wrong, he doesn't deserve this. And miraculously, after 10 years in the clink, Joseph was let out on parole. You'd think with this chance for a new life, he'd turn his shit around, maybe hang out with better people, do a juice cleanse, get on the up and up. But no, of fucking course not. Why would he? He moved back to Charleston to live in half a duplex, held a bottle of liquor better than he held a job, and his live-in girlfriend was getting fed the hell up real quick. Linda, his girlfriend, would say, honey, just apply yourself. Do more than sit on the couch with your hand down your pants, eating chunks of Velveeta, drinking Mai Tais. Here, have a watered-down whiskey instead. To which he'd say, listen, Linda, I'm trying my best. Until finally she was like, you know what? I'm deucing. You are compensating with that big hat. Don't know who you're trying to fool. One morning, Joseph, who was sleeping alone in his bed, was awoken by the sound of a moving truck next door. Ooh, neighbors, we can bake cookies and make casseroles and have wine nights. Or at least that's what the new folks were hoping. Oh, honey, were they in for an unexpected anal poke when they saw the slop that lived next door. The innocent-seeming new neighbors were Aaron, his wife Fada, and their 13-year-old kid Karen, all of who were lovely people who couldn't have been nicer to Joseph. But he'd return their wave by mooning them or flipping them the bird like a grumpy old rascal of a man, despite the fact that he was only in his 30s and really had no excuse not to be as happy as a fucking chickadee. Like, really, why do you have to be like that? Although I will admit, I myself am not a neighbor kind of guy. Like, I've lived in places for 5 years at a time and not once ever spoke to a neighbor, but to go out of your way to be a sour bastard, that's just tacky. Well, one night after yet another drinking bender, Joseph was stumbling his ass home, and when Aaron looked out the window, he nearly shit himself from fright. Joseph was standing outside their house with a machete, a rifle, and a sawed-off shotgun. How he held all three is just beyond me. But after seeing this sight, I'm pretty sure Aaron knew exactly where he was gonna put these guns and his foot. He wakes up his wife Fada, who freaks the fuck out and picks up the phone to call Joseph's 75-year-old dad with no luck. It's not that his dad wasn't home in the middle of the night, it was that Joseph had cut the freaking phone lines. Of course he did. This is like a B-grade horror movie. Fada runs her ass out the back door to go tell Joseph's dad in person while Aaron stayed behind to guard the house and Karen. He had no idea though that Joseph had already snuck into Karen's room. Aaron was going around making sure everything was locked when he heard a single loud gunshot. He frantically ran to Karen's room to find her with a bullet wound in her head, execution style, and Joseph laughing, standing over her with a smoking gun. Joseph turns his head towards Aaron, still grinning, and points the gun at him. Aaron starts running just as the first gunshot goes off and it misses him by centimeters. Joseph starts chasing him through the house like a fucking madman with Aaron feeling bullets burn off his ear fuzz. Meanwhile, Fada and Joseph's dad heard the gunshots, called the cops, and ran back to the duplex. When Fada opened the door, she was immediately met with Joseph pointing the gun in her face. Scared shitless, she just started backing up onto the porch with Joseph following. The moment he caught sight of his adoptive dad, he pointed his gun towards him and shot the man in the shoulder. Granted, this was a rifle at close range, so I mean, like, what shoulder? Ugh. His adoptive dad ended up passing out almost immediately from blood loss and later died on the living room floor. Father ran behind Joseph into the house, locked the door on him, and hauled absolute ass to the telephone to once again call the police. Joseph began shooting through the walls of the house. It was like a scene out of the Matrix. Debris was flying everywhere, and Father was dodging bullets like a fucking sensei to try to get to the phone. And after pure chaos, Joseph finally ran out of bullets, hopped on his little motorbike, and fled the scene. Father and Aaron ran to their daughter's room to find her in a pool of blood. She was taken to the hospital, but sadly, it was too late. She was already gone. As some shred of luck would have it, though, one of the neighbors just happened to be an off-duty cop and was just returning home. When he saw the flashes of lights from the gunshots and then a maniacal madman leaving on a motorcycle, he immediately called for backup. The cop followed him for several miles until he lost control of the bike, hit a rail, and went flying like liquid in a Bounty commercial. There was no denying that Joseph was guilty. In fact, his drinking buddy told the police that just the night before, Joseph said that when I go home, the first thing I see, I'm gonna kill. Real manly. Ooh. So, like, don't call the cops or anything, but also I don't think the friend took Joseph's drunk ass seriously. People say shit when they're drunk. People do shit when they're drunk. Ooh, people get pregnant when they're drunk. Joseph ended up being indicted for 2 counts of murder and then 2 counts of assault with intent to kill. Add to that a count of first-degree burglary and another 2 counts of unlawful possession of a weapon. So this little bitch was screwed harder than a home buyer in 2008. And because of his prior murder, the killing of Karen and his dad were capital offenses. Can you say screwed and tattooed? Prosecutors were snapping their fingers saying, oh, he's getting the death sentence, honey. But his defense team said, no, he's an alcoholic and was drunk at the time of his murders. Which, I mean, is that really an excuse? If I go smoke some bath salts and eat somebody's face off, I still smoked the shit and did the damn thing, right? Y'all remember when that was a thing? Well, the prosecutors were on top of this little murderous board game and were like, okay, but he cut the phone lines, which means this was premeditated and he was fully aware of what the fuck he was doing. happening. Mic drop, put the hoops back on, and push them bangs to the side, baby. Joseph's attorneys sat their cooters down and said, well, that's all we got. Until the next day when they came back and said, okay, well, Joseph's time in the service really fucked him up and that's why he acted that way. Like in his drunken stupor, his mind was back in Vietnam and he was just in war mode. To which the prosecutor said, look here, you whiny little ankle biters. You go to Washington, D.C. and look at that wall of 50,000 soldiers that died and think of asking them if this behavior was warranted. As if any of them wouldn't slap you in the face over suggesting that it's okay to murder your father in cold blood and execute a defenseless 13-year-old child. They put their foot down at this argument saying it was insulting. Plus again, he cut the phone line, so it wasn't like he was picturing himself on the battlefield just shooting randomly. There was some planning involved. It took the jury less than an hour to recommend a verdict, a double death sentence, which isn't where they kill him, then resuscitate him, and then kill him again. He was basically to the point where even if he appealed one of them, he'd still have to jump through a hoop the size of Helsinki to avoid the second execution. The judge really wasn't feeling the jury's verdict though, so they were like, well, what about life? But South Carolina didn't have life without parole, which means after 20 years, he'd be eligible to get out. In fact, even if they'd given him 10 life sentences rather than having to wait 200 years, he could still possibly get out at 20. The judge is like, you know what? Fuck all this shit. I'm putting him on death row after all. And so in 1999, at the age of 51, he was given a steak, fries, tossed salad, corn on the cob, and chocolate pudding. He was then led to the lethal injection chamber where he spoke no words and refused to make a final statement. And that is that. This case is fucking heartbreaking, right? Especially because this little girl did not deserve to die, and then what, the killer gets a fucking steak dinner? And it's extra sad because Joseph's upbringing wasn't his fault, yet there was nothing he could do to save himself. He did not have to become a killer, and again, just a simple smile can affect someone's day. Be fucking nice to people. Just a whole pot of sad shit stew. Anyways, my loves, there you go. Thank you so much for being here. I love having you. And if you want a little bit more me in your life, head over to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/poplux. You get videos a day early, you get Patreon only content, and best part, it is cheap, fun, and fancy, just like me. And don't forget, my latest Repop collection is available at repopcosmetics.com and on my YouTube store. Comment down below, let me know what you thought of this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Snapchat, Instagram, and Twitter at officialnady, and you can follow me online at thepoplux.com. Thank you so much for watching. I love you all, and I will see you again soon. Bye!